$10,000 to show up to a blind date, looking like a disaster. Messy hair, no makeup. The ugliest outfit she owned. They told her it was a prank for a reality TV show. They told her the guy was an actor who was in on the joke. They lied. The man sitting across from her at that restaurant wasn't an actor. He wasn't part of any prank. He was Alexander Chun, the billionaire CEO of the company where she worked. And he was there for one reason only: to find someone who would love him for who he was, not for his money. Maya had no idea that the cruel joke her co-workers had orchestrated was about to backfire in the most spectacular way imaginable. She had no idea that by showing up looking like her worst self, she was about to become the only woman who had ever told Alexander Chun the truth. And she definitely had no idea that the women who had set her up were about to lose everything. This is a story about karma, about authenticity, and about what happens when mean girls mess with the wrong underdog. But before we dive in, I want to see something. Drop a comment right now telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Last video I had people commenting from South Africa at 3 a.m., India at midnight, Canada at 2 in the morning. This community is worldwide and it blows my mind. Let me know where you're tuning in from, and let's get into this story. Maya Torres had been working at Nexus Technologies for 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days. She knew the exact count because she had marked her start date on her calendar with a little star. Back when she was still naive enough to believe that hard work and dedication would be enough to get ahead in the corporate world. 3 years later, she was still an assistant project coordinator, still making $52,000 a year, still invisible. It wasn't that Maya wasn't good at her job. She was exceptional. She had single-handedly salvaged the Henderson account when the lead project manager had dropped the ball. She had stayed until midnight for 6 weeks straight during the Tokyo merger. She had trained for different people who had all been promoted above her within 18 months. But Maya had one fatal flaw in the world of Nexus Technologies. She wasn't part of the inner circle. The inner circle was ruled by 3 women who had turned the 34th floor into their personal kingdom. Brittany Sinclair, the vice president of marketing, with her perfect blonde highlights and her collection of Louboutin heels that she displayed like trophies. Her best friend, Megan Walsh, director of client relations, whose Instagram following was larger than her actual job responsibilities. And finally, Jessica Park, head of talent acquisition, who had never acquired any talent except the talent for making other women feel small. They called themselves the Trinity. Everyone else called them other things, but only in whispers, and only when they were absolutely sure no one was listening. Maya had learned to stay out of their way. She ate lunch at her desk. She took the stairs instead of the elevator to avoid small talk. She kept her head down, did her work, and dreamed of the day she could afford to quit and start her own consulting firm. But on this particular Tuesday morning, staying invisible wasn't an option. Maya Brittany's voice rang out across the open office floor. The sound of her heels clicking on the polished concrete was like a warning siren. "Can you come here for a second?" Maya looked up from her computer, her stomach tightening. In 3 years, Brittany had never once asked to speak with her directly. Their entire relationship consisted of Brittany walking past Maya's desk without making eye contact, occasionally leaving passive-aggressive notes about the coffee maker. "Of course," Maya said, standing up and smoothing her modest Target blouse. "What can I help you with?" Brittany smiled. It was the kind of smile a cat gives a mouse right before it pounces. "Let's talk in the conference room. Megan and Jessica are already there. We have a little proposition for you." Maya followed Brittany down the hall, her mind racing through every possible scenario. Was she being fired? Had she made some mistakes she didn't know about? Was this about the Henderson account? Had someone taken credit for her work again? The conference room was one of the smaller ones on the floor, tucked away in a corner with frosted glass walls. Megan and Jessica were already seated, both of them looking at Maya with expressions of barely concealed amusement. "Close the door," Brittany sighed, taking a seat at the head of the table. "Sit down, Maya. We have an exciting opportunity for you." Maya sat, her hands folded in her lap, her posture straight. She had learned long ago that showing fear to these women was like bleeding in shark-infested waters. What kind of opportunity? Brittany leaned forward, her perfectly manicured nails tapping on the table. "Have you ever heard of a show called Punk?" Maya blinked. "The old MTV show? With Ashton Kutcher?" "Exactly. Well, there's a new streaming version being filmed here in the city. Very hush-hush. very exclusive, and they're looking for regular people to participate in one of their episodes. Maya said nothing. Say, wait. Here's the concept. Megan jumped in, her voice dripping with false enthusiasm. They set up a blind date between two people, but one of them is in on the joke. The person who's in on it shows up looking absolutely terrible, like they just rolled out of bed. Meanwhile, the other person, who thinks it's a real date, has to try to be polite while secretly being horrified. It's hilarious, Jessica added. The footage of their reactions is pure gold. Maya still said nothing. A knot was forming in her stomach. Brittany slid an envelope across the table. They're offering $10,000 for participants. Cash. All you have to do is show up to a restaurant tomorrow night looking like a disaster. Bad hair, no makeup, frumpy clothes. The whole thing takes maybe 2 hours. Then you reveal it's all a joke. Everyone laughs, and you walk away with 10 grand. Maya looked at the envelope. She didn't touch it. Why me? Brittany's smile widened. Because you're perfect for it. You're authentic, relatable. The audience will love you. What Brittany didn't say, what Maya could read between every carefully chosen word, was the truth. Because you're plain. Because no one will be surprised that you showed up looking terrible. Because humiliating you on camera will be the funniest thing we've seen all year. Maya should have said no. Every instinct in her body was screaming that this was a trap. But $10,000 was 2 months of rent. $10,000 was the emergency fund she had been trying to build for 3 years. $10,000 was freedom, even if it was just a tiny piece of it. Who's the guy? Maya asked. The one I'm being set up with. Just some actor, Brittany said dismissively. Nobody important. He's in on it too, obviously. The whole thing is scripted. And this is definitely legitimate. There's a real production company. Absolutely. Jessica pulled out her phone and showed Maya a website. Apex Entertainment Productions. See, totally legit. They've done tons of viral content. Maya looked at the website. It looked professional enough. There were logos, testimonials, a portfolio of previous work. She didn't know that Jessica had created the entire website the night before. She didn't know that Apex Entertainment Productions didn't exist. She didn't know that there were no cameras, no production crew, and no scripted reveal. She didn't know that the man she was about to meet was Alexander Chun, the 34-year-old billionaire CEO who owned Nexus. Technologies and everything in it, including her modest salary and her tiny cubicle on the 34th floor. And she definitely didn't know that Brittany had spent months trying to get Alexander's attention, only to be politely but firmly rejected every single time. This wasn't a prank for a TV show. This was revenge. Brittany had discovered through her network of corporate spies that Alexander was going on a blind date tomorrow night. A date arranged through a matchmaking service that catered to executives who wanted to meet people outside their professional circles. A date where Alexander would be using a fake name and pretending to be a regular architect named Daniel. Brittany's plan was elegant in its cruelty. She would send Maya, the most invisible woman at Nexus, to that date looking like a train wreck. Alexander would be horrified. The date would be a disaster, and when Alexander inevitably complained to the matchmaking service, Brittany would swoop in with a sympathetic ear and a perfectly timed coincidence. Oh, Alexander, you had a terrible blind date? What a shame. I happen to know that matchmaking service is garbage. Let me introduce you to some real quality women, starting with me. It was foolproof. Or so she thought. Maya went home that night with the envelope of cash in her purse and a pit in her stomach. She lived in a small one-bedroom apartment in Queens, a 4th-floor walk-up with a radiator that clanked and a window that didn't quite close all the way. It wasn't much, but it was hers. She sat on her bed and counted the money. $100 bills. More cash than she had ever held in her hands at once. $10,000 for 2 hours of embarrassment. She could pay off her credit card. She could fix her car. She could actually go to the dentist for the first time in 2 years. All she had to do was show up looking terrible to meet some actor who was in on the joke. It's not a big deal, Maya told herself. It's just a prank. Everyone will laugh. I'll get paid, and I'll never have to think about it again. But some part of her, some quiet voice in the back of her mind, knew that nothing involving the Trinity was ever that simple. The next evening, Maya stood in front of a bathroom mirror and got to work. She put on her oldest pair of jeans, the ones with the frayed hem and the small hole near the knee. She found a shapeless gray sweater that her aunt had given her 3 Christmases ago. One she had never worn because it made her look like a depressed cloud. She pulled her hair back in a messy, lopsided ponytail and deliberately didn't brush out the tangles. For the finishing touch, she put on her backup glasses, the thick-framed ones she only wore when her contacts were bothering her, and applied absolutely no makeup. She looked in the mirror. She looked tired, plain, forgettable, perfect. The restaurant was called Lumiere. Maya had never heard of it, but a quick Google search told her it was a French place in Tribeca, the kind with white tablecloths and no prices on the menu. Way too fancy for a prank show, she thought. But whatever. Rich people are weird. She took the subway into Manhattan, painfully aware of how out of place she looked among the evening commuters and their business casual and designer bags. A woman in a Chanel jacket actually moved away from her on the platform. Good, Maya thought. That means it's working. She arrived at Lumiere at exactly 7:30, the time she had been told to show up. A hostess in a sleek black dress looked her up and down with barely concealed disdain. "Can I help you?" "I'm meeting someone," Maya said. The reservation might be under Daniel. The hostess's eyebrows rose slightly, but she checked her list. "Right this way." She led Maya through the restaurant, past tables of elegant couples and business dinners, to a small table near the window. And there, sitting alone with a glass of water, was the most attractive man Maya had ever seen in her life. He had dark hair, slightly tousled, and warm brown eyes that crinkled slightly at the corners when he looked up. He wore a simple navy blue sweater and dark jeans, nothing flashy. But everything about him radiated a quiet confidence that made Maya's heart skip a beat. This is the actor, she thought. No wonder they're hiding him on a prank show. He should be in movies. The man stood up as she approached, and Maya braced herself for the look of horror, the barely concealed disgust, the awkward attempt to be polite. Instead, he smiled. It was a genuine smile. Warm, welcoming, as if he was actually happy to see her. "You must be Maya," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Daniel. It's really nice to meet you." Maya shook his hand, confused. This wasn't how the prank was supposed to go. He was supposed to be visibly disappointed. He was supposed to be checking his phone for an escape route. He was looking at her like she was the most interesting person in the room. "Please, sit down," Daniel said, pulling out her chair. "I hope you like French food. I've heard amazing things about this place." Maya sat, her mind racing. Maybe he's just a really good actor, she thought. Maybe this is part of the bit. Play it cool. "So?" she said, picking up the menu and immediately regretting it. When she saw the prices, a $40 salad, $60 for pasta. "How did you end up using a matchmaking service? You don't seem like someone who would have trouble meeting people." Daniel laughed. It was a nice laugh, easy and unforced. "You'd be surprised. I work a lot, and in my line of work, it's hard to know if people are interested in me or in..." He paused, searching for the right word. "What I represent." Maya nodded slowly. "What do you represent?" "Stability, I guess. Success. The illusion of having it all figured out." "And do you have it all figured out?" Daniel's smile turned slightly wry. "Not even close. I'm still trying to figure out how to keep a houseplant alive. My last cactus died." Maya laughed before she could stop herself. "How do you kill a cactus?" "Neglect, mostly. I travel a lot for work. Came back from a trip to Singapore and it was just sitting there, looking betrayed." Maya found herself relaxing, despite her confusion. This wasn't going at all like she expected. Where were the hidden cameras? Where was the awkward silence? Where was the moment when he would excuse himself to the bathroom and never come back? Instead, they talked. They talked about work. Daniel said he was an architect, which Maya found fascinating. He described buildings the way some people described art, with passion and reverence, and a deep understanding of how spaces shape the people who inhabit them. They talked about their childhoods, Maya told him about growing up in a small town in Pennsylvania, the daughter of a nurse and a factory worker. Daniel told her about his immigrant parents, how they had come to America with nothing and built a life through sheer determination. They talked about dreams. Maya admitted, for the first time out loud, that she wanted to start her own consulting firm someday, that she felt stuck in her current job, that she sometimes wondered if she was wasting her potential. Daniel listened. Really listened. Not the way men usually listened, where you could see them waiting for their turn to talk. He asked follow-up questions. He remembered details from earlier in the conversation. He made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. By the time Desert arrived, Maya had completely forgotten about the prank. "Can I be honest with you?" Daniel said, setting down his fork. Maya's stomach tightened. Here it comes, she thought. Here's where he reveals the cameras, of course. "When I saw you walk in tonight," Daniel said slowly, "I thought you were the most refreshing thing I'd seen in months." Maya blinked. "Refreshing. Every woman I've met through this service," Daniel continued. "They show up looking like they're going to a photo shoot. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect outfit. And then they spend the whole dinner trying to impress me with how perfect their life is." He leaned forward slightly. "About your job, your dreams, your frustrations. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" Maya felt her face flush. The instructions to show up looking as unappealing as possible. Daniel listened without interrupting. When she finished, she couldn't meet his eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. "I thought it was just a stupid prank. I didn't know you were a real person with actual feelings. I feel terrible." The silence stretched between them. Then Daniel started to laugh. Maya looked up, startled. "I'm sorry," Daniel said, shaking his head. "I'm not laughing at you. It's just the irony is incredible." "What do you mean?" "The reason I'm using this matchmaking service," Daniel explained. "I specifically asked them to set me up with someone who didn't know anything about my background. Someone who would treat me like a normal person, but not at you. I'm furious at whoever set this up. They tried to use you as a weapon to humiliate both of us." He reached across the table and took her hand. "But here's the thing, Maya. They failed. This has been the best date I've had in years. Maybe ever." Maya felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Why would they go through all this trouble? Why would anyone care enough to orchestrate this whole thing?" Daniel's expression changed. Something flickered in his eyes. Something that looked almost like recognition. "These women who set this up," he said carefully. "What are their names? Brittany Sinclair, Megan Walsh, and Jessica Park. They work at my company, Nexus Technologies. They're basically the mean girls of the 34th floor." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Nexus Technologies," he repeated. "Yeah? Do you know it?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment, white with black text. "Alexander Chun, Chief Executive Officer, Nexus Technologies." Maya's vision blurred. The room seemed to tilt. "I'm your CEO. Daniel, no, Alexander," said quietly. "I use a fake name on these dates because I want people to see me as a person, not a bank account. I had no idea you worked for my company until about 30 seconds ago." Maya wanted to throw up. "I'm going to be fired," she said flatly. "I just spent 3 hours complaining about my job to the man who signs my paychecks." Alexander shook his head. "You're not going to be fired. In fact, I'm starting to think you're one of the only honest employees I have." He leaned forward, his expression intense. "But I need you to tell me everything about Brittany Sinclair and her friends, because I have a feeling the issues at Nexus go a lot deeper than mean girl office politics." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the revelation settling between them. Then Alexander did something Maya didn't expect. A genuine, delighted laugh that made the other diners look over in confusion. This is the most interesting thing that's happened to me in years." "Interesting?" Maya repeated, bewildered. "Don't you see? They wanted to humiliate both of us. They wanted me to have a terrible time and run screaming. Instead, I'm having the best conversation I've had in months with the most genuine person I've met in years." Maya felt something warm bloom in her chest. But wait, she said, a thought occurring to her. How did they even know you were going on this date? How did they know where you'd be? Alexander's expression darkened. That's an excellent question. He sighed slowly. The matchmaking service I use is extremely confidential. That's terrifying, Maya said. It is, Alexander agreed, and it suggests that Brittany Sinclair is more dangerous than I realized. He pulled out his phone and typed a quick message. What are you doing? If someone at Nexus is spying on me, I want to know who. This is insane, Maya said. 3 hours ago, I was a nobody eating ramen in my apartment. Now I'm caught up in some kind of corporate espionage drama with the CEO of my company. Welcome to my life, Alexander said dryly. It's never boring. His phone buzzed. He read the message, and his face went hard. What? Maya asked. Alexander showed her the screen. The access logs showed that someone has been forwarding copies of my calendar to an external email address for the past 8 months. The email address is registered to a company called Apex Entertainment Productions. That's the fake production company. Maya breathed. Brittany has been monitoring my schedule, my meetings, probably my communications. The question is why. Maybe she really is just obsessed with you, Maya suggested. Alexander was quiet for a moment, thinking. We're deciding whether to merge with a competitor, DataSync Technologies. It's been controversial. Some board members think it's a bad idea. Brittany's father is Harold Sinclair. Maya's eyes went wide. Harold Sinclair? The Harold Sinclair who owns DataSync Tesame. Oh my God, Maya whispered. Every strategy meeting, every private conversation, every negotiation detail. This is way bigger than a prank date, Maya said. Yes, it is, Alexander agreed. Whether to go to the authorities now and risk a messy public scandal, or whether to gather more evidence and take them all down at once. Maya looked at Alexander. She saw the determination in his eyes, the cold calculation of a man who hadn't become a billionaire by being naive. What do you need from me? She asked. Alexander studied her face. I need you to go back to work on Monday like nothing happened. I need you to keep your head down and your eyes open, and I need you to trust me. Maya took a deep breath. Okay, she said. I trust you. Good, Alexander said, because things are about to get very interesting. Over the next hour, Maya told Alexander everything. She told him about the talented employees who had quit rather than deal with the harassment. She told him about the projects that had been sabotaged, the credit that had been stolen, the careers that had been derailed. She told him about her own experience. 3 years of being overlooked. 3 years of watching less qualified people get promoted because they knew how to play the game. 3 years of wondering if she was the problem. Alexander listened to all of it with growing anger. Primera vez, no idea, he said finally. I've been so focused on the big picture. The mergers, the expansions, the board meetings. I completely missed what was happening at the ground level. They never leave evidence. That's about to change. He pulled out his phone. What are you doing? Wait. If you do that, they'll know I talked to you. We need to be strategic about this. He thought for a moment. The annual company gala is in 2 weeks. Every executive, every department head, everyone who matters will be there. I know, Maya said. I helped coordinate it last year. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I did all the logistics. This year, you're coming, Alexander said firmly. Not as staff, as my guest. Your guest. Maya almost choked. Alexander, I can't. Everyone will see us together. Brittany will lose her mind. I want them to wonder what we talked about. I want them to spend 2 weeks panicking about what you might have told me. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. And then, at the gala, we're going to give them something to really panic about. Maya should have said no. This was insane. She was a nobody, a junior employee who couldn't even afford to eat at restaurants like this without a supposed TV show paying for it. But something in Alexander's eyes made her believe him. Something that said he wasn't just angry on her behalf. He was angry because injustice offended him on a fundamental level. Okay, she said finally. But I have one condition. Name Italiano. I want to be there when Brittany finds out. I want to see her face. Alexander's smile returned, genuine this time. That, he said, can definitely be arranged. The 2 weeks before the gala were the longest of Maya's life. She went to work every day like nothing had happened. She ate lunch alone at her desk, just like always. She had a secret that could destroy them. Brittany seemed to sense that something had changed. Brittany asked on the Monday after the date, her eyes gleaming with barely concealed anticipation. Terrible, Maya said flatly. Just like you said it would be. The guy took one look at me and couldn't get out of there fast enough. Brittany's smile was radiant. No, that's awful. I'm so sorry. She didn't sound sorry. She sounded delighted. At least you got the money, right? Brittany continued. 10 grand for a bad date isn't the worst trade. Yeah, Maya agreed. Not the worst trade. She went back to her computer, hiding her smile behind the screen. Enjoy it while it lasts, she thought. The countdown is on. She went back to her computer, hiding her smile behind the screen. Enjoy it while it lasts, she thought. The countdown is on. 2 days later, Maya received a text from a number she didn't recognize. Meeting tonight, 8 p.m. The coffee shop on 53rd and Madison. Come alone. Delete this message. D. Maya's heart raced. She deleted the message and spent the rest of the afternoon pretending to work while her mind spun through possibilities. At 7:45, she left the office, telling anyone who asked that she had a dentist appointment. She walked 6 blocks in the wrong direction, doubled back through a department store, and finally emerged on Madison Avenue, reasonably confident she hadn't been followed. The coffee shop was small and unremarkable. Alexander was already there, sitting in a corner booth with 2 cups of coffee and a laptop. You came, he said, sounding relieved. Did you think I wouldn't? I wasn't sure. This is a lot to ask of someone I just met. Maya sat down across from him. You trusted me with the truth about who you are. The least I can do is show up for coffee. Alexander smiled briefly. Then his expression turned serious. We have a problem, he said. A big one. He turned the laptop toward her. On the screen was a series of emails. My security team traced the leak, Alexander explained. It wasn't just Brittany. She had help from someone inside IT. A guy named Kevin Marsh. He's been installing monitoring software on executive devices for the past year. Maya felt sick. So they've been reading everyone's emails. Not just yours. Everyone in the C-suite. Every board member. Every department head. That's how Brittany always seemed to know everything, Maja really said. That's how she always had leverage. She wasn't just well-connected. She was spying on the entire company. Each its force, Alexander said. He clicked to another screen. We found evidence that Harold Sinclair has been using the information to make trades. Insider trading, Maya. Federal crime level stuff. So what do we do? That's what I wanted to talk to you about, Alexander said. I've been in touch with the SEC. They want to build a case, but they need more evidence. They need someone on the inside who can document Brittany's activities without raising suspicion. You want me to be a spy, Maya said flatly. I'm asking you to keep doing what you've been doing. Go to work. Be invisible. But now, pay attention. Document everything. Names, dates, conversations, anything that seems off. And if Brittany catches on, she won't. You've been invisible to her for 3 years. She doesn't see you as a threat. Maya thought about it. She thought about the years of humiliation, the stolen credit, the colleagues who had been driven out. She thought about the fact that Brittany had tried to use her as a weapon without any consideration for her feelings or her dignity. Okay, Maya said. I'll do it. Over the next week, Maya became a ghost. She moved through the office like a shadow, always in the background, never attracting attention. She started taking different routes to the bathroom, the break room, the elevator. Routes that happened to pass by Brittany's office, by the IT department, by the conference rooms where private meetings were held. She heard things. She heard Brittany on the phone with her father, discussing board member voting patterns in language that was clearly coded. She heard Megan bragging to Jessica about a stock tip that had made her $20,000 overnight, a tip that coincidentally related to a Nexus supplier contract that hadn't been publicly announced yet. She heard Kevin from IT telling a friend that he was about to come into a lot of money once a certain deal went through. Maya documented everything. Times, places, exact quotes when she could remember them. She typed the notes on a phone in the bathroom stall, then transferred them to a secure email account Alexander had set up for her. It was terrifying. Every time Brittany looked in her direction, Maya's heart stopped. Every time someone asked her what she was doing, she had to fight the urge to confess everything. But she kept going, because for the first time in 3 years, she wasn't just surviving. She was fighting back. On the Thursday before the gala, something unexpected happened. Maya was in the break room, making her usual cup of terrible office coffee, when Brittany walked in. But instead of ignoring Maya, as she usually did, Brittany stopped. "Maya," she said, "can we talk for a minute?" Maya's blood ran cold. "Of course," she managed. "What's up?" Brittany leaned against the counter, looking at Maya with an expression that was almost friendly. "I feel like we got off on the wrong foot," Brittany sighed. "When I suggested the prank show thing, I was just trying to include you, give you an opportunity to make some extra money. I didn't mean for it to be weird." "It wasn't weird," Maya lied. "I appreciated the opportunity." "Good," Brittany said, "because I've been thinking. You've been at this company for 3 years. You're clearly capable. And I feel like maybe I haven't been as supportive as I could have been." Maya said nothing. She didn't trust herself to speak. "The company gala is next week," Brittany continued. "I know assistants don't usually get invited, but I could put in a word. Get you on the list. What do you think?" Maya's mind raced. Why was Brittany suddenly being nice? Was this a trap? Had she figured out that Maya was documenting her crimes? "That's really kind of you," Maya said carefully, "but I actually already have plans that night." "Oh," Brittany's eyes sharpened. "What kind of plans?" "Family thing," Maya said. "My cousin's engagement party. I've had it on the calendar for months." Brittany studied her for a long moment. Maya forced herself to hold eye contact, to keep her expression neutral. "Well," Brittany said finally, "maybe next year then." She walked out of the break room without another word. Maya let out a breath she didn't know she had been holding. Her phone buzzed. A text from Alexander. "Everything okay?" Maya typed back with shaking fingers. "She's getting suspicious. We need to move faster." The night of the gala, Maya barely recognized herself. Alexander had insisted on sending her to his personal stylist. She had spent 6 hours being transformed. Hair, makeup, nails, dress, dress. It was a deep burgundy gown, floor length, with a subtle slit that showed just a hint of leg when she walked. It was elegant without being flashy, sophisticated without being unapproachable. She looked in the mirror and saw a stranger. A beautiful stranger who looked like she belonged at a gala full of millionaires and executives. Her phone buzzed. A text from Alexander. "Car is downstairs. Ready?" Maya took a deep breath. Ready. The gala was held at the Plaza Hotel, in a ballroom that dripped with crystal chandeliers and old money elegance. Maya had helped book this venue last year. She had never imagined she would actually walk through the doors as a guest. Alexander met her in the lobby. He was wearing a perfectly tailored black tuxedo, and when he saw her, his face lit up. "Wow," he said simply. "Is that a good wow or a bad wow?" "That's a Utica Mibra throwaway." "Wow," Alexander replied. He offered her his arm. "Shall we make an entrance?" Maya's heart was pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. "Let's do this." They walked into the ballroom together. The reaction was immediate. Heads turned. Conversations stopped, mid-sentence. A waiter nearly dropped a tray of champagne glasses. And there, near the center of the room, standing with Megan and Jessica in matching designer gowns, was Brittany Sinclair. The color drained from her face so fast that Maya thought she might actually faint. "Is that," Megan whispered, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, Is that Maya Torres? With Mr. Chun. Jessica's voice was strangled. How is that possible? Brittany said nothing. She was staring at Maya with an expression of pure, undiluted horror. Alexander guided Maya through the crowd, stopping occasionally to greet executives and board members. Each time, he introduced her the same way. This is Maya Torres. She's one of the most talented people at Nexus, and I've been fortunate enough to get to know her recently. The executives looked confused but polite. The board members were intrigued, and Brittany, watching from across the room, looked like she was having a slow-motion heart attack. After about an hour of mingling, Alexander checked his watch. It's time, he said quietly to Maya. Are you ready? For what? Ju-u-si. He walked to the small stage at the front of the ballroom, where a microphone had been set up for the evening's speeches. He tapped the microphone twice, and the room fell silent. Good evening, everyone, Alexander said, his voice carrying through the ballroom. Thank you all for being here tonight. Nexus Technologies has had an incredible year, and it's because of the hard work and dedication of every single person in this room. There was polite applause. But tonight, Alexander continued, I want to talk about something other than profits and growth metrics. I want to talk about values, about the kind of company we are, and the kind of company we want to be. The room was utterly silent now. Recently, Alexander said, I became aware of a situation within our organization that deeply troubled me. A culture of harassment, bullying, and professional sabotage that had been allowed to fester unchecked for years. Good employees driven out. Talented people overlooked. Careers destroyed by petty jealousy and social manipulation. Brittany's face went from pale to green. I launched an investigation, Alexander continued, and what I found was worse than I could have imagined. He pulled out a small stack of papers. I have here documented evidence of expense fraud totaling over $200,000. Falsified performance reviews used to deny promotions to deserving employees. Recorded conversations in which senior leaders discussed sabotaging a major project simply because they didn't like the project manager. The murmuring in the crowd grew louder. The individuals responsible for this behavior are in this room tonight, Alexander said. His eyes found Brittany, and as of this moment, they are no longer employed by Nexus Technologies. Brittany made a strangled noise. Security, Alexander said calmly. Please escort Ms. Sinclair, Miss Walsh, and Miss Park from the premises. Their termination letters will be delivered tomorrow, along with a formal referral to the district attorney for fraud charges. 2 security guards materialized from the edges of the room and walked toward the Trinity. You can't do this, Brittany shrieked, her composure completely shattered. I've given 6 years to this company. I know people on the board. I'll sue you for wrongful termination. You're welcome to try, Alexander replied. But I should mention that one of the conversations we recorded was you discussing how you set up a blind date with me using an unwitting coworker as a pawn, specifically because I had rejected your advances. The room gasped. Brittany's eyes darted to Maya, and in that moment, Maya saw the exact expression she had been waiting for. Pure, unfiltered terror. You, Brittany whispered. You told him? Maya stepped forward, her voice steady. No, Brittany, you told on yourself. I just confirmed what he already suspected, Seppo said. Oh, and by the way, the date was amazing. Best night of my life. So thanks for that, I guess. Brittany lunged toward Maya, but the security guards caught her arms. Get her out of here, Alexander said quietly. As Brittany was dragged from the ballroom, screaming threats and obscenities, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace. As Brittany was dragged from the ballroom, screaming threats and obscenities, something unexpected happened. Harold Sinclair, Brittany's father, pushed through the crowd. He was a large man in his 60s, with silver hair and the kind of permanent tan that came from spending too much time on yachts. What the hell is going on here? He demanded. That's my daughter. Take your hands off her. Alexander stepped forward, his expression cold. Mr. Sinclair, I was hoping you'd make an appearance tonight. Harold's eyes narrowed. What's the meaning of this, Chun? This is harassment. Your lawyers, Alexander interrupted, are going to be very busy. You see, while we were investigating your daughter's activities at Nexus, we stumbled onto something interesting. He pulled out his phone and pressed play on a recording. Harold Sinclair's voice filled the ballroom. The merger vote is in 3 weeks. With the information Brittany's been feeding us, we know exactly how to play each board member. By the time this is over, I'll own Nexus without paying a dime. Harold's face went white. That's illegally obtained, he sputtered. That's inadmissible. Actually, it was obtained by your daughter's own surveillance system, Alexander said. The same system she was using to spy on Nexus executives. Turns out, she wasn't very careful about who else was on those servers. He looked at Harold with something approaching pity. The SEC has been notified, so has the FBI. I'd recommend calling your lawyers now, Mr. Sinclair. You're going to need them. As if on cue, a group of men in dark suits entered the ballroom. They walked directly to Harold and Brittany. Harold Sinclair, one of them said, holding up a badge. FBI, you're under arrest for securities fraud, wire fraud, and conspiracy. You have the right to remain silent. This is a setup, Harold roared as they put him in handcuffs. You'll pay for this, Chun. I have friends in high places. So do I, Alexander replied. And mine don't commit felonies. As the FBI led Harold and Brittany out of the ballroom, the crowd erupted into chaos. Phones were out everywhere. People were calling their lawyers, their brokers, their spouses. The story was going to be on every news channel by morning. Alexander turned to the remaining guests. I apologize for the disruption, he said calmly. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. The bar is still open, and I'm told the dessert course is exceptional. There was scattered, nervous laughter. Alexander walked back to Maya, who was standing frozen in the same spot, unable to process what had just happened. Are you okay? He asked. I think I need to sit down, Maya said. He guided her to a quiet corner, away from the chaos. You were incredible, Alexander said. We couldn't have done this without you. I didn't do anything, Maya protested. I just took notes. You risked everything, Alexander countered. Your job, your safety, your peace of mind. You had every reason to stay invisible and protect yourself, and instead you chose to help bring down people who had been hurting others for years. He took her hand. That's not nothing, Maya. That's everything. Maya looked at him. This man she had met 2 weeks ago under the most absurd circumstances imaginable. This billionaire CEO who had seen her at her worst and somehow still saw her. So what happens now? Ask it now, Alexander said. We figure out what we want this to be. This. Us. He gestured between them. I know we met because of a ridiculous prank. I know I'm technically your boss, which creates about 1,000 HR complications. I know that everything about this situation is insane. But, Maya prompted. But I can't stop thinking about you, Alexander admitted, and I'd like to take you on another date. A real one this time. No undercover identities, no surveillance equipment, no mean girls scheming in the background. Maya laughed. That sounds nice, she said, but I have one condition. What's that? I get to wear the ugly sweater again. Alexander grinned. Deal. The fallout from the gala was seismic. The story broke on every major news network the next morning. Billionaire CEO exposes corporate spy ring at company gala. Father-daughter crime duo arrested for insider trading. The Nexus nightmare. How one company's internal investigation uncovered a multi-million-dollar fraud. Maya watched the coverage from her apartment, still in shock. Her phone had been ringing non-stop since midnight. Reporters wanting interviews, former colleagues wanting gossip, her mother wanting to know if she was okay. She ignored all of it. Alexander had warned her that her name would come out eventually, that she couldn't stay anonymous forever. But he had also promised that Nexus's PR team would protect her, that they would control the narrative, that she wouldn't have to face the wolves alone. By Monday, the story had shifted. The media was no longer focused on the crime. They were focused on the romance. Someone Probably Megan or Jessica, trying to cut a deal, had leaked the details of the prank date to a tabloid. Suddenly, Maya was famous. Billionaire CEO falls for secretary after prank date gone wrong. The ugly sweater that changed everything, from nobody to somebody. How Maya Torres caught a billionaire. Maya hated every headline. She hadn't caught anyone. She hadn't been trying to catch anyone. She had just shown up to what she thought was a stupid TV prank, and accidentally met someone who saw her for who she really was. But the world didn't care about the truth. The world wanted a fairy tale. And so Maya Torres, the woman who had been invisible for 3 years, suddenly couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. It was overwhelming. It was exhausting, and it made her realize something important. She didn't want to be famous. She didn't want to be the girl who caught a billionaire. She wanted to be the woman who built something of her own. 3 weeks after the gala, Maya walked into Alexander's office. "I want to resign," she said. Alexander looked up from his computer, surprised. "What? Why?" "Because as long as I work here, everything I accomplish will be attributed to you," Maya explained. "Every promotion, every project, every success. People will say I slept my way to the top. They'll say, you gave me special treatment." "I can handle those rumors," Alexander said. "But I can't," Maya replied. "I've spent 3 years being overlooked and underestimated. I refuse to spend the next 30 being reduced to the CEO's girlfriend." Alexander was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want to do instead?" Maya took a deep breath. "I want to start my own consulting firm. I want to help companies identify and address toxic workplace cultures. I want to use what I learned at Nexus, both the good and the bad, to make things better for people like me." She looked at Alexander. "And I want to do it on my own. No funding from you. No introductions. No safety net. I need to prove to myself, and to everyone else, that I'm more than just a punchline in a viral story." Alexander nodded slowly. "Okay," he said. "Okay. If that's what you need, then that's what you should do. I'm not going to pretend I'm happy about losing you as an employee. You're the most honest person at this company, but I understand why you need to leave." He stood up and walked around the desk. "I have one request, though." "What?" "Let me take you to dinner tonight. Not as your boss, just as the guy who is falling in love with you and doesn't want you to disappear from his life." Maya smiled. "I think I can manage that." 6 months later, Maya stood in her new corner office on the 42nd floor, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The nameplate on her door read Maya Torres, Director of Strategic Operations. The promotion had come 3 weeks after the gala, not because she was dating the CEO, though the company SHR department had been extremely thorough in documenting that there was no conflict of interest. She had been promoted because she was good at her job, because she had ideas that the company needed, because 3 years of being overlooked had given her a perspective that the executives in their corner offices had lost. There was a knock at her door. "Se turned." Alexander was standing in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Got a minute for your favorite CEO?" Maya smiled. "I suppose I can fit you in." He walked in and handed her a cup. It was exactly how she liked it. 2 sugars, splash of oat milk. They had been officially dating for 4 months now. The tabloids had gone crazy when the news broke. Billionaire CEO falls for regular employee. The Cinderella story of Wall Street. Maya Torres. From cubicle to cornered office. Maya had hated every headline. Not because they were mean, but because they missed the point entirely. She hadn't fallen for Alexander because he was a billionaire. She had fallen for him because he had looked at her on her worst night, when she was wearing her ugliest clothes with her hair a mess and her glasses crooked. And he had seen her. The real her. "I have something for you," Alexander said, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Maya's heart stopped. "Alexander," she whispered. "Is that what I think it is?" "Depends. What do you think it is?" Maya's hands were shaking. "If that's a pair of earrings, I'm going to be really relieved." Alexander laughed. "It's not earrings." He got down on one knee. "Maya Torres," he said, opening the box to reveal a stunning but understated diamond ring. 6 months ago, You showed up to a date looking like a disaster because some terrible people paid you $10,000 to humiliate yourself. And somehow, impossibly, it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. Tears were streaming down Maya's face. Not because you're smart, though you are. Not because you're beautiful, though you are. I love you because you're real. Because you make me want to be better. Because you see me as Daniel, not as Alexander Chun, the billionaire CEO. He took her hand. Will you marry me? Maya looked at the ring. She looked at Alexander. She looked at the office, the skyline, the life she had built from the ashes of 3 years of invisibility. On one condition, she said. Anything, including the part about the $10,000 and the ugly sweater. Alexander grinned. Dale. Maya pulled him to his feet and kissed him. Then yes, she whispered against his lips. 1,000 times yes. The wedding was held on a private beach in the Maldives. Small, intimate, just family and close friends. Alexander's parents came from their home in San Francisco, his mother crying happy tears through the entire ceremony. The maid of honor was a woman named Rebecca, who had been the one employee at Nexus brave enough to befriend Maya during the Trinity's reign of terror. The best man was Alexander's college roommate, a guy named David, who kept making jokes about how Alexander had finally met someone who could match his stubbornness. When it came time for the toasts, Maya stood up with a glass of champagne. Most people know the story of how Alexander and I met, she said. The tabloids have covered it the prank date, the ugly sweater, the twist ending. The guests laughed. But there's a part of the story that didn't make the headlines, Maya continued. The part where I almost didn't go on that date at all. She looked at Alexander. I was scared, she admitted. I knew, deep down, that something was wrong, that the women who set it up didn't have my best interests at heart. But I took the money anyway, because I was desperate, because I had spent 3 years feeling invisible, worthless, like I didn't matter. Her voice caught slightly. If I hadn't gone on that date, I never would have met Alexander. I never would have found the courage to speak up about what was happening at Nexus. I never would have discovered that I was capable of so much more than I believed. She raised her glass. So, here's 2 second chances. Here's to the ugly sweaters and the messy ponytails, and the moments when we show up as our most imperfect selves. Because sometimes, those are the moments that change everything. The guests raised their glasses. 2 second chances, they echoed. Alexander stood up and pulled Maya into his arms. I love you, he whispered. I love you too. They kissed as the sun set over the Indian Ocean. Somewhere back in New York, Brittany Sinclair was working as a receptionist at a dentist's office in Staten Island. The fraud charges had been reduced to a misdemeanor in exchange for her cooperation in the investigation. But her career in corporate America was over. Her LinkedIn profile listed her as a freelance marketing consultant, but the phone never rang. Megan had moved back in with her parents in Ohio, her Instagram following slowly dwindling as people forgot who she was. According to mutual acquaintances, she had become a genuinely different person. Maya had seen her at a coffee shop once, and they had nodded politely at each other. It wasn't friendship, but it wasn't war either. Sometimes, that was enough. And Maya? Maya was living a life she never could have imagined. Not because of the money, not because of the private jets, or the beach house, or the designer clothes that now filled their closet. She was living her best life because she had finally learned to see herself the way Alexander had seen her that night at Lumiere. As someone who mattered, as someone who deserved to be seen, as someone whose voice was worth hearing. 3 years after the wedding, Maya stood on a stage at a women's leadership conference, looking out at an audience of 2,000 people. She was the keynote speaker. 10 years ago, she began. I was invisible. I worked at a company where my contributions were overlooked, my ideas were stolen, and my self-worth was eroded one passive-aggressive comment at a time. She clicked to the next slide. It was a photo of her from the night of the infamous date. Bad hair, thick glasses, gray sweater. The audience laughed, and then someone paid me $10,000 to show up to a date looking like this, Maya continued. It was supposed to be a humiliation, a prank, a way to put me in my place. Sí, es mile. It turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. She clicked to the next slide. Her wedding photo. Her and Alexander, barefoot on the beach, laughing. But here's the thing, Maya said, her voice growing serious. The happy ending isn't the point of this story. The point is what I learned along the way. She stepped out from behind the podium and walked to the edge of the stage. I learned that the people who try to tear you down are usually the ones who are most afraid of what you might become. I learned that authenticity is more powerful than any designer outfit or perfect makeup. And I learned that sometimes, the moments when we feel most vulnerable are actually the moments when we're most ready to transform. She looked out at the audience. Some of you are in that invisible place right now. Some of you are being overlooked, underestimated, told that you're not enough. And I want you to know something. Say, say, they're wrong. They've always been wrong. And someday, maybe someday soon, you're going to have a moment that proves it. The audience erupted in applause. Maya smiled and walked back to the podium. Now, she said, let me tell you about the time I accidentally complained about my job to my own CEO for 3 hours straight. The audience laughed. And Maya Torres, the woman who had once been invisible, told her story to 2,000 people who would never forget it. And that's the story of how a woman who was paid $10,000 to show up ugly to a date ended up marrying a billionaire and burning down an empire of mean girls in the process. Here's what I want you to take from this. The people who try to humiliate you, who try to make you feel small, who pay actual money to see you fail, they do it because they're terrified of what you might become if you ever realize your own worth. Maya took a prank designed to destroy her and turned it into the greatest love story of her life. And Brittany, who thought she was so clever, ended up losing everything. Her job, her reputation, and her freedom. The universe has a funny way of balancing the scales. Now, I want to hear from you. What would you have done if someone offered you $10,000 to show up to a date looking terrible? Would you have taken the money, or would you have known it was a trap? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one. If this story made you smile, or cheer, or just feel a little more hopeful about karma, smash that like button. It really does help the channel grow more than you know. And if you haven't already, subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next story. I've got an insane one coming up about a man who laughed when his wife asked for a divorce until she showed him the inheritance papers. Trust me, you're going to want to see how that one ends. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.